Are plants capable of moral wrong? You wouldn't think so, but then you encounter a tree like the Siberian Elm, and it makes you wonder. Yeah, I'm sure kudzu, loosestrife, and giant hogweed are all pretty bad, and this Siberian Elm never makes those lists of top worst invasive plants, but darn if these aren't the ones that get my knickers in a knot. I mean, just look at them, standing there like smug jerks. It knows it looks pretty alright, that it's resistant to Dutch elm disease, that you don't want to see 5,000 of its offspring springing up between your rutabagas. It doesn't care. If you listen closely, you can hear it say, "Oh, you wanted a grassland there? And a garden there? Those maples are doing a little too nicely. Wouldn't you rather just have a solid acre of my offspring?" No? Well, I wasn't asking you. Every single year, plant the garden, wait a day, and down comes a snowfall of papery seeds in a reign of terror, and up springs a legion of pompous little miscreants, doing horticultural, ecological mayhem in their wake. And just try to pull them up. I mean, look at the roots on these things. If you miss even just a bit of that, that thing's springing back full force. And why do we still have these ones here? Good question, Mom. Like, maybe if you plant it in a place where the adjacent ground is always cultivated or mowed and it can't spread, okay, fine. Or if you're in its native range or somewhere it's not invasive, a-okay, go for it. It has its place, but that place is not here. And so otherwise, if you're in North America, please, for the love of all that is sessile and photosynthetic, do not plant this plant. Now, sometimes they're already here or they're on someone else's property, so you can't legally cut them down. What do you do with that? Well, fortunately, there's a silver lining to it all. Apart from their enviable, smoldering good looks, you can eat the tree. Almost the whole thing, although not every part is equally tasty. Case in point, if you're okay damaging the tree a bit, and I mean, why not, you can eat the inner bark. I go into that a bit in my winter foraging video. That inner part of the bark can be cooked in small pieces or ground up to make flour. I guess I never actually showed myself tasting it in that video, so here's an outtake from that one. Overall, not bad. This is the elm here. I went a little bit deep in some parts, so there's a bit more actual wood to this, which that's pretty hard to chew, but the Cambium part is pretty good. Yeah, adding a bit of salt definitely helps. Some of the better bark I've tasted. You can eat the leaves too. They're decent as long as you catch them early enough. The longer you leave them on the tree, the tougher they'll get and the more cooking they'll need to soften up. Now this can be used like a bulk green. Not everyone's a fan of the taste, if it's not diluted with other ingredients. But I mean, to me it's a pretty standard green sort of taste. Maybe closest to stinging nettle. A little bit mucilaginous, like it causes a little bit of a sticky texture in the mouth, but I would call that a pretty good one there. But for the most noteworthy food source here, if cutting off its sustenance isn't enough to show this verdant upstart of a tree who's boss, why not take things a step further and eat its progeny? If you catch the seeds, or the Samaras as these ones are called, before they turn white and flutter off the tree, they actually taste decent. I mean, nothing that'll blow your mind, but it has a pleasant lettuce-like taste and there's plenty of it, so that's a win in my books. And reportedly, it's not just foragers and people from ages past who are eating these things. These have actually been an important food source in parts of China for quite a long time now, especially Manchuria. And during times of famine, these could even be one of the main sources of food in some of these areas, even as late as the Great Chinese Famine in the mid-1900s. You won't find much on the English parts of the internet as to how these are actually used in Chinese cooking, but thanks to my cousin Zach and his skills in Mandarin, I was able to find a few examples of dishes. If you know more, or have good recipes, or are Chinese and appalled at how I replicate these dishes, please let me know in the comments so I can eat better while further banishing these villains from North America. One simple preparation I found runs roughly as follows. Wash some Samaras, coat them in flour, and then start frying up some hot peppers. Once those have been going for a bit, then throw in the flour-coated Samaras and some green onion. Once that all changes color to be a bit more yellowish, add salt, and you're ready to eat. This one was absolutely delicious, quite simple to prepare, not many ingredients, and I do tend to like things that are greasy and salty, but it just had a really good fried greens sort of taste to it. I'll definitely be making that one again when the Samaras come around again. Another simple preparation I found was to just mix the Samaras with beaten eggs and a bit of salt, Throw that into a hot greased pan and stir it as the eggs start to set, and just keep going till the egg is basically all the way cooked. This one was also pretty good. I would definitely recommend the first one as maybe a first way to try elm samaras, but I'll include links to some of those Chinese recipes. I also found one that was for steam buns with elm samaras and pork inside. But these recipes are run through Google Translate, so it may take a bit of patience getting through Google Translate's antics. But interestingly with that, you'll notice a lot of the time it interprets them this way: elm money. And that is effectively the Chinese name for these samaras here. It sounds funny in English, but it makes sense. It more literally translates to copper coin. The copper part I don't think has any significance. It's never really copper colored. It seems to be more just referring to a small coin. And historically these copper coins had a hole in the center so that you could carry them on a string. This has a shape in the middle as well, though it's more of a bulge, less of a hole, but you get the idea. Apart from those uses in Chinese recipes I found, these do work pretty much just like any other leaf-like vegetable. Put them in salads, sandwiches, pretty much anywhere you'd put raw leaves. Also, it turns out these work pretty well as a base vegetable for soups, so I'm going to try mass harvesting a bunch and freezing them. You can never have too many bulk vegetables. Here, it's not a big issue if they get mushy, because I'm probably just going to blend these anyway, so I'm going to blanch them. Greens tend to keep better in the freezer when you do that. So boil them, let's say 15 seconds, and then throw them into cold water, drain, and freeze. So this is the samaras taken out of the freezer. I guess just for next time I'll have to make sure to pack them tighter. How I did it this time, there's a lot of air throughout the bag, so they're already starting to dry out and freezer burn a little bit. So otherwise though, like, they're in a condition that should work perfectly well for soup. So I tried making some soup with the frozen ones, and looks like it turned out all right. I mean, darn tootin' if that ain't a good soup. So there is a lot you can do with these, and I'm sure there's a lot more than I covered. If you know any good recipes, let me know in the comments. To reiterate though, if you're in North America and not planting in a field shelter belt or something, please don't plant this tree. It's aggressively invasive as all get out, and there's plenty of other good-looking trees that are better suited to the area. But if it is there, at least it makes a decent snack. But that's all I have for this week. As always, if you have any corrections, suggestions, or disparaging remarks, feel free to comment down below, and liking and subscribing always really helps me out. This video was brought to you by the Stanley Soil Management Association. The SSMA is a non-for-profit organization that offers various ecological goods and services throughout the Pembina Valley Watershed District and beyond. In addition to providing tree sales to landowners, they've planted well over 600 miles of shelter belts since 1987, or somewhere over 700,000 trees. So for more interesting, tasty, and sometimes terrible plants from around the world, join me next time on Ambling with Sam.